Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning to our friends in America. Good evening to our friends in Asia. On behalf of the Mobility Development Group and all of our members, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today on Service Provider Wi-Fi, presented by Dave Dukenfield of Cisco. My name is Doug Martell. Thank you for joining us today. We promise that you will find the topic engaging and that we will take less than an hour of your time. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, just one procedural reminder. Throughout the webinar, please provide your questions and comments in the Q&A window on the right of your screen. And time permitting, we will answer as many questions as we can at the end. Any questions, of course, that we don't get to, we will be happy to answer in a personal email. So now, we are very fortunate to have with us today Dave Dukenfield, Senior Mobility Engineer at Cisco. Dave supports Wi-Fi and small cell 3G, 4G cellular networks for Cisco Starent Networks. As I'm sure everybody already knows, Cisco is a driving force behind the Internet of Everything revolution. Welcome, Dave, and thank you for offering to be our keynote speaker today.
Not a problem. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, just making sure. Everybody, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and hello to all the ships at sea. I'm Dave Dukenfield. I'm a systems engineer at Cisco. Been doing service providers since the mid-90s. I handle, obviously, licensed, unlicensed, CSON. I get to put my fingers. I'm affectionately calling myself a mobility cook lately because I get to chin stuff up and make it work. Essentially, last got together, we did have a face-to-face in San Jose. I've actually gotten more involved with only deploying Wi-Fi as an offload technology, but even got involved with working with Apple and doing their secure voice over Wi-Fi that you see on T-Mo, Sprint, and AT&T. So, I'm not, Wi-Fi is one of the tools in my kit, and granted, I have a cellular focus, cellular background, but, I get to see it more and more. I'm going to show some information from Mobidia. You can go look up, you'll see their icon, I believe, on one of the slides. It's not as new as I like. I went back to update these slides, and I couldn't find it, but the best way to put it, it's only gotten more intense for Wi-Fi as we get. So I'm just going to flip onto a slide. Generally speaking, when you look at monthly consumption of an iPhone, again, this is, I think this is June 2014. I've seen stuff for the third quarter of 2014, but it's pretty much on par here. Myself being US-centric, I'm sitting between 80 and 90% of all traffic being Wi-Fi based. And part of it is obviously the culture of an iPhone and Apple, and I'll speak to it a couple times, but more anecdotally, I do have a teenager, and I watched, as almost the way the gorillas in the midst, I watch them to see how they use their phones, and it's interesting because to them, they look for free Wi-Fi and they spend little to no time actually chatting over that. So here's another piece of slide. So the company is Mobidia. You can go to mobidia.com or Google that. They do a good job. They run apps on the phone selectively, allowed by the user, opting in and collect this type of data. Again, this is now getting older. I'm always going to see the latest and greatest, but from a U.S. viewpoint, we do data plans, and a lot of this is driven by that. I can't go over, and hit my tonnage numbers. And again, with shared plans, when families, you don't know what your son, daughter, wife, whoever is eating of the available balance. You're always doing your best to stay, Wi-Fi. iOS, though, which ends up culturally being more, it's in our hands, it's also in our kids and their kids' kids. They seem to be more focused on Wi-Fi is the draw from here, but this is all just leading to you to go, why Wi-Fi, why am I even talking about it? Here's another one across the carriers. You can see here consumption of licensed versus unlicensed, and clearly Sprint folk are doing well when it comes to their people using their phones. It could go back to a lot of their earlier all-you-can-eat plans, but it's still, you can see here, arguing at least 3-to-1 in favor of Wi-Fi. This slide, available after the talk, but all of this is pretty much out of their Mobidia papers. You can go to their site, and I think you just need to, you don't even have to have an account. You can just ask for it, and they'll send it to you. And they're good. I've never received a Mobidia spam in my life. So, okay, here's your thought for when it comes to iPhone users. And you can see, again, I'm iterating through all this, but 100% of the iOS users across the four top use Wi-Fi. No one, or literally no one, 1% does pure license. So you get a feeling here, you can see those column on the right, which leads out and shows you just how spread out, of course, Wi-Fi users. So odd enough, Sprint, though being the one who more apt had the all-you-can-eat, ends up having more Wi-Fi usage. So it almost, I don't know if that's just a mentality of I can eat all basically, the buffet is open, so I'm eating both flavors of licensed and unlicensed. So here's what we're seeing. Generally speaking, from a cellular data, you're looking at 3 to 1. This is from Mobidia, so this is their words, but that's well beyond the tipping point. If I was going to be a betting man, and I am, that Wi-Fi will take the lion's share of that device's usage. Nick, they were saying 4 times. I was being conservative with 3. You'll see it on the roaming part as well, cellular roaming, versus if I have a choice between going to roam versus public. I'll speak a little bit later about the iPhone and the secure voice over Wi-Fi, but a lot of folk are going that way, at least for talking. And now you're seeing the challenge going down. If I have a user out there, and especially a millennial, and they have a choice of going cellular, and I'm not quite sure I understand the technology, but I know there's a tonnage I can't hit, versus, hey, I'm sitting at Starbucks / Google, that seems to be the lead here. So societal, we are driving, and with our data plans, driving this behavior. So given that, it's not just about Wi-Fi, minutes of use, falling off 20%, that's in the UK. I'll argue part of that is because of Wi-Fi. I'll argue part of that is culturally because of the next generation. Again, they viewing voice not to be as a primary technology. I even joke with my companions here and a few other cloud service provider is, we are building VoLTE more for, as a maintain the legacy of voice as we go forward. We're almost building it more for us and obviously enterprise business, but there'll be a large chunk of society who will be connected and alone and just be happy to be going through between texting and Instagramming, and that's about it. On the side here, you can see the increase in Skype apps over the, being still one of the top downloaded, again, driven by the cost, the freeness of it, and the Apple Secure Voice over Wi-Fi now is in, since we last talked, as a typo there, T-Mo, Sprint, and at least AT&T and Verizon's playing with it as well. So the question is, how do you integrate that into your mission statement as a service provider? That you're going to see Wi-Fi carrying a bulk of the smartphone data. The AC is in all the phones now, driving the speed. There are ways of doing quality of service and quality of connection. There's neutrality that's enabled by venue-centric value chains. I'll show you that in a little bit. Again, you've got the iMessenger and the millennials living on top of it, voice over Wi-Fi. In fact, in working with one of the top tier here, after they rolled out the voice over Wi-Fi, they realized, and this makes sense, that they actually got a huge kick in the usage by actually SMSing their users saying, oh, by the way, did you know your phone does this? Because a lot of times when it rolls out a new, say, iPhone update, you didn't realize you just got a new service and, and it's available where you are. And there's some people, and I'm one of them, who live in the country who, do not see significant, I'm lucky I see 3X on a good day. So, 3G on a good day, sorry. Or I'm on CDMA, I'm down to 1X, that's what I meant. And lastly, but on this, if you look at the average per user sustained busy hour rates of LTE, the carrier Wi-Fi's are just passing that and approaching 100 kilobits per second, which you don't think is a lot, but I'm talking sustained average over that hour, which is a lot. So. Then we go through a few things here on what could be your relationship with Wi-Fi. And let's obviously the poor, good, and the best one here. It's untrusted, and people just use that on their device and go over the top. The next one is you can create a trusted version of it, and you can augment it, and I'll talk to that later. And the last one is you can actually embrace it, and using the feature set of Wi-Fi, you can now bring in rich media, you can bring in, quality of service, and have it as a augmentation. So the question is, I don't think that the first one's a fight. It's happening either way. The second one is understanding it, and the third one is understanding it and then enriching it with features that match or try best to match what you're seeing today in, say, an LTE world. So 2 types of access out there. The first one, trusted. The second one, untrusted. To me, trusted means I own end-to-end. There's not a link in there that you're going to be like, oh, who owns that for you? It's a partnership. And untrusted would be the case of your user sitting there, again, Starbucks or Google. Trusted, there's a thing called a SAMOG gateway. So all these services, you're looking for a way to bring in your Wi-Fi user and have a demarc into your core. SAMOG, which is a acronym of acronyms for S2-way mobility over GTP, and then GTP is an acronym, and then it goes on and on, but it's a way of creating almost the akinness of an MMES gateway, but in a Wi-Fi world. It's a way of having the TWAP there, the AAA proxy. That's the guy who's more signaling focused. He'll be looking for you, the user, to come in, to be doing an EAPK, to do a authentication that we're going to see and go, new user, and do the session management. And then the TWAP, the gateway, is a data path. That's more akin to a security gateway. So you have many options here when it comes to authentication. Generally speaking, for the new folk who are running on a decent phone, latest iPhone, Samsung Galaxy, will be using the USIM chip and the cipher values on there to authenticate you with EPAKA over to your service here, which lets you right onto the network. We do this all the time with Hotspot 2.0. We've done it with a lot of other scenarios. The iPhone secure Wi-Fi is also using EPAK for that. Hang on a second. Management, we have the options here of establishing, tearing down, and doing any kind of accounting. So in time, you could actually look at, let's call it roaming scenarios, where you're allowing, you're creating, I'll show you later, a citywide Wi-Fi as you as a carrier, and then you can use EPAKA and roaming-like arrangements to allow other people onto that service, whatever city it's in, to do, whether it be attachment, whether it be data, whether it be voice over that Wi-Fi. And then the TWAG there is, again, like I said, like an S gateway. It's going to have an interface, the S2-way to the P gateway to get into your core. It's going to have control on data, and you can do some bearer management as well. And there's a nice picture here. So the whole idea is that you've got access here on the edge, whether it's Cisco stuff, non-Cisco stuff. You're coming in. This is looking, if you look in that green box to the left, the TWAP is looking for that authentication message to come in the southbound side and go, wake up. It does, it doesn't need initially the way you look at 3G or 4G, an actual call setup. It'll look at that as the call initiation, the first sign of life, and bring you in. Once you've authenticated through the back end here, then the TWAP will, just like you do with S11, akin to S11 on LTE, will tell the TWAG, allow this user in, allow the data path. The TWAG will talk to the P gateway, your anchor gateway in your core. From that, it can get all the information it needs. From the APN, it can get what IP address it has, all the good information, set up the end-to-end data path here, and off you go. This is for a trusted network. I'll show you what happens for untrusted next. Basic handover here. So what you can see here, this is what we're seeing in some of the phones. Hang on a sec, make sure I'm in the right place. Yep. This is in the case of, and I should say this for a little bit. No, let me come back to this. I think this one got misplaced, but I'll put it in the right place in a second. So untrusted brings you to what's called the EPDG, the Enhanced Packet Data Gateway. This sits with a public-facing IP address and well firewalled off to allow users from their phones, in this case a good example would be the iPhone secure voice or Wi-Fi, build an IPsec tunnel. IPv2 is the protocol for setting up the tunnel, and once the tunnel's up, it actually builds a data, it comes in, it's setting up IP2, it's authenticating off your AAA using its parameters on its SIM card, so AKA. Once that's established, it's going to reach up to the P gateway over S2B, establish a tunnel there, get all its information from the P gateway, its IP address and information, and build that tunnel. And your security of that IP address that you will hit out on IP servers, internet, IMS, will be the one assigned by the P gateway and inside the tunnel between these two. Let me go back here. So this is what it looks like. Here's the phone. In this case, let's make this an iPhone. It's got non-seamless wireless offload. And that means that the phone knows it's going to make this call setup for voice, and everything else, as a trivial example, goes data this way. So data over LTE, voice over IPsec through the wireless communication here. It's going to end up in the same APN so that it gets the same address allocated from either way. So the user's the same, so you can actually do handoffs between the two. You can actually set up radios and have a path here, you know, almost akin to doing a separate path for LTE and a handoff to another eNode be over here. This is now doing a handoff between a wireless IPsec-based EPDG P Gateway 1 over to LTE S Gateway, same P Gateway 1, same IMS, so we can actually do handoffs. And because you're anchored here in this P Gateway, all the policy from the PCRF, all the online and offline chargings will work and work with this new RAT type coming in. So here's a classic one here. You can see the actual path that we go. So here's your 4G phone with Wi-Fi. You're at Starbucks. You can establish IP2, like I said, the EPDG, authenticate, P Gateway. And in this case, what you can actually do is the P Gateway can come back with the CFCF values via the call services through the EPDG, through IP2 to tell the client on the phone, oh, by the way, you need to talk to this IMS code via session border control, whatever how you're building it out, that you're going to now have to establish a call. One of the things that you can do, too, is that P Gateway can also be, because this is an open standard here, the S2B, that P Gateway can be your existing P Gateway, or you can actually move it and have it stand alone here. I've seen some carriers actually put them together so they can have their traditional internet connectivity over LTE go through their existing core, and then as they roll out the stuff for places like Apple and Android, they cluster the EPG and P Gateway, so that S2B collapses down and sits in it. It becomes a combo box, so it actually does both and then goes right out to the IMS. Done. Then once you're up, you're SIP registered and you're placing your call. So some of the functions you get with an EPDG, again, this is the untrusted IPsec northbound, so you get all the fun stuff you get to do with IPsec and IP2. And also, once you're establishing the tunnel, you're going to go off and authenticate over triple IPsec, over diameter to then to the HSS. In there, we can actually either have it hard-coded or come down from the AAA. You can actually do P Gateway selection and go out. And again, like I said, that P Gateway could be the one on the box, it could be the one in your core, it could be a backup, it could be load shared, whatever, however you want to do that. And then once you do that, you can actually do some of the cross mapping between the IPsec session, whatever you want to put there, and the S2B that goes into the P Gateway. So you can maintain clocks across the board. So DHCP markings, and then anything you want to do in the way of individual flow markings. So go back. Hang on. That's screwing it up. So voice support. I think I've talked this one before. This is not a busy chart, but it can be busy. It looks, if you look across the top row, it's all the same thing. We're talking about a Wi-Fi calling app. If you look at the bottom, it talks about flavors. What if you're home? What if you're at your office? What if it's SP managed? And then integrating in, what do you call it, a bearer binding and event reporting function. So to me, BBERF is the policy of a gateway. So that gateway could easily be an S gateway, could be an EPDG. That first gateway where you're coming into the network, if you want to apply policy to something, it effectively becomes a BBERF or a bearer binding and function. So the concept here is the first one happens today. It's at home, someone's doing Skype or whatever, no identity, it's just his or her Wi-Fi. There's no keys that you manage. It might be a login to Skype, and off you go. The next one, you say, well, it's enterprise-based, so we can actually tap into some of the Active Directory, LDAP functionality for who they are, and by hard-coding it, you can make sure that all the gateways you're going to need to go through are specific to that as a user of the enterprise, and then the IT can go through and make sure that those particular gateways, the 5-tuple, who's it going from, where's it going to, what protocols are they using, are very specific, going back to standard corpsec policy, which is let nobody through except for these fixed rules. And that way you can do Wi-Fi calling. The one I've been playing with since we last chatted a lot and deploying is the third one. This one fits the, say, the iPhone secure voice over Wi-Fi, where you've got, you know, a 4G phone, it's got a USIM card on it or cipher values that are used in authenticating that user, so there's no username, password, or anything like that you need, or splash pages that you might see at a Starbucks. We do basic AAA roaming, you know, as you bring them in, so you can identify them, and I can also identify them if I'm doing, like I showed you before, moving on the same P gateway between unlicensed and licensed, and that's how we're identifying. The one that's coming more specific, it looks exactly the same, but now I can affect that EPDG or access point with diameter and change policy so I can give him a specific dynamic quality of service. One of the things that was popular if you were rolling this out for, say, Untrusted, if you did an EPDG and you decided I'm going to support iPhone, I'm going to do iPhone secure voice over Wi-Fi. If you rolled out an EPDG and you put the P gateway on the same box, and that box only did secure voice over Wi-Fi, the need for a QoS wasn't there, because I was looking at this in the analogy. If you've got an 8-lane highway and every lane is HOV and you all qualify for HOV, then it's not HOV. We're all stuck. You know, we just equalize each other. So if you set up a system that's only doing voice over Wi-Fi, then everybody, you know, it's all false. I mean, yes, there's signaling and there's there, but there's no one going to be streaming it, Netflix through it. There's not going to be any type of best effort. It's best effort for everybody, but that bar is the same for everybody. Let's see here. So it's a client initiative. This is the one I think I showed before, but what happens here, I think it was just a cut and paste, is the extra one. You're setting up that IPsec client through the wireless access to the EPDG, and on the phone, there's policy there for trusted, non-trusted that says, I want the phone traffic, I want that voice over Wi-Fi, that SIP traffic to go through the upper layer, and non-seamless wireless offload can go off there. And I'll show you where we're doing things similar to that, so it's a good fit. So here's what I've done and we're looking at now, and we're in multiple phases in a few places, but it's cool. I call it the SP WiFi phase approach. There are cities, and I'm going to do US only, but this fits technically everywhere else, that are looking to go to the next, you know, Internet of Things. They want to be the smart city. I'm seeing this in many places. They have assets to offer the service provider, and one of the key assets there that are really nice, you get, if you team with a good city, you get hanging rights, you get power for the hanging rights, and you get fiber backhaul through the city. And the issue is the city seems to go, I want to be the next smart city, I want to be the next Hamburg who's got, you know, intelligent lighting and stuff. And we've ended up doing things, we do a troika relationship. It would be Cisco, carrier, city, and essentially you develop a Wi-Fi, you know, pick any city, I'll make one up, Memphis and Beale Street. I want to light up all that whole area with Wi-Fi, And what happens is you work with the provider and the city and go, all right, I'll make, for simplicity, for trivial, half that bandwidth goes to the city, half goes to the provider. Provider gets it for offload, and the city can do things, not only offer it to tourists, they can offer it for smart, I'll get to, Internet of Things, smart application for the city. So the phase one we always see is, all right, you have nothing there, let's bring in some type of managed Wi-Fi. We're going to do our studies, going to light the place up, again, 802.11, A, C, and N, and work with the city to see where their assets are, where we can hang, where the fiber, where new fiber has to go, and develop this system. The second phase is we go, all right, now that you've done that, I'd like to bring in policy. It makes it a lot easier for seamless authentication. The first phase, without this policy, without any type of, again, E-type authentication, you're going to do splash pages, just like you might see at Google or other place where it's either going to be username and password or just click here and accept the terms, conditions, the T's and C's. The second one is to bring in policy where now you can authenticate against the username. You can even authenticate a username and password, but some type of policy. And once you know policy, then I can do more granular control. And once you're in, I can control you through the network as a function of who you are, what you signed up for, that type of stuff. Phase three, that's when we get into what we just saw, the trusted and untrusted. All right, I'm in the network. I'm not just getting as far as the city, the internet, and I'm gone. For my service provider customers who are using half the available assets, I want to bring them back into my core, to which then I can offer them my internal services, music services, however, the voice services, whatever I want to do, and have other control on top of that as well. Fourth phase is where I brought them in. They're in my core. Well, now I can get into my IMS. That's what that speaks to here, both voice over Wi-Fi and both. You can integrate both racks into the same voice system. The last one I'll call phase 5, but later on I'll call it phase X. This is where the city gets their due. They go, all right, you're running this service provider. What can I do with it? Because I want to be the smart city. Phase 5, depending on what it is they want to do, you could do it back as far as phase 1.5. Once the access up, you can do it. I just put it up the end here, but I'll show you some of the examples that you can then enable the city and build its partnership on. So, phase 1, outdoor Wi-Fi. Again, our studies making sure we're not just lighting up for coverage, we're lighting up for capacity. We're trying our best to hit SLAs. If you ever search for SLA for city Wi-Fi, you don't find anything specific. We're trying to do is to the point where we can not quite guarantee, but get that 100 kilobit per second I talked about per second consistently, whether it's a small arena, whether it's a multiple city. Let's go South by Southwest Austin. You want to light up that whole section of Austin and make sure those numbers that you hear on the news that say, oh, we had 20,000 people, and assuming some uptake rate, that they were all happy, that they didn't walk away from that and say, oh, because they're not going to remember the city, especially they're going to remember the carrier, so you want to do this right. Simple stuff, authentication, use splash page, terms, conditions. You can do things that involve SMS. You can do a lot of things to get a user on without actually having an authentication phase 2 server. But you can do that as well. There's a lot of options here. We offer a thing called Airtime Fairness, but it's a nice, simple thing. Using a time division algorithm, and this one's the trivia case, I can offer 50% of the Wi-Fi air capacity to the city and 50% to the service provider, and it breathes. If for some reason 25%, half the city is not being utilized, the service provider can actually go into their capacity, use that, and if the city starts to swell up, it'll swell up back, in this case, to 50%. It'll never pass 50. Service provider has that. But if the service provider shrinks down and goes to 20%, the city can then go up to 80. So it nice breathes back together. The other thing, and also in this Airtime Fairness, sometimes with access points, Wi-Fi access points, you hang them somewhere, you wire them into network, everything is good. All of a sudden you realize there's a park across the street that you can't reach with wire. So you actually can connect those in over the 802.11, use one of the radios as almost a wireless backhaul, and we've worked the Airtime Fairness, not only give you fairness onto the network, we give fairness between these wired and unwired access points so that you may get on and get fairly on, but you want to make sure no one's abusing their transit rights. So location services, tracking people. We're doing ones where we do small indoor-outdoor shopping areas where it will know if you want. You can say, you know, you're near enough to Williamson, Sonoma, and we can alert them. As an example, here's, you know, 25% off your next item if you go in the next couple of hours. So we can do a lot of location, including wayfaring. Think of it as for large parks, large areas, universities, where you can actually help that person, even hospitals, find that building, find that event, find that room for their MRI. So, and lastly, you are offloading a lot of this, you know, as I showed, 3-to-1, 4-to-1. That's a lot of data. Nice not being on your network. It makes your capacity easy and working with the city. Phase 2, talked about it, bringing in policy services in a way you can, you know, do things like hotspot 2. You can make it as seamless as you think cellular is to connect with, you know, choosing the correct network, choosing the right authentication, getting on. I can control that, because once I bring policy in and I know who you are, I can go back, just like any good policy protocol. I can be quizzed to let you on. I can also push policy back into the system, whether I'm pushing into an EPDG, P-gateway, wherever I'm thinking of pushing. I can do quota, I can do plan creations, I can even do one-offs. You're in town just for South by Southwest for the day, you can sign up, or I can push you a free, you know, day pass. More policy features, full integration with your diameter, DPI, so I can control applications, I can throttle things if I need to, I can give quads where I need to be, full federation roaming into all the cable labs partners, you know, all the ones we know from cable. I can even do, with some new pieces, enhanced location, I can get you down to almost roughly 20 feet of where I think you are. So I can, you know, do a lot of nice stuff there. And again, like I mentioned, voucher management for access. Phase 3, integration, we already kind of covered this. Trusted, untrusted, SAMAC for trusted, EPDG for untrusted. One's obviously bringing in IPsec. And this helps you build in the foundations there for hand in and out, because we'll anchor you in P gateways for all your RATs, and that way we understand you. It's just a different RAT, but same identification as a user. Phase 4, voice integration, pretty straightforward. Once I get you into your core, I can have an IMS APN. I can, you know, bring in, you know, depending on the app on the phone, I can do some nice inter-RAT work here. And this one I call Phase X. Again, it can come in as soon as it comes up, depending what it is. But if you never really thought about it, here you are thinking. Here's some of the examples that probably don't jump in your head. If you think of your phone today, your phone has radios, microphones, speakers, accelerometers, GPS, everything. Sensors out there have all that, plus additionally has sensors for air quality, seismic events. This is what I can offer the city, or we could offer the city. So as a service provider, you can go to your local city and go, I'd like to enable Wi-Fi. I can bring in this type of service. I will team with you. They love it, because now they turn around and go, I've got almost free Wi-Fi. I mean, they're just giving you assets they already have. They get to do this kind of nice stuff. You get to get offload. And with Airtime Fairness, I can make sure that, you know, one doesn't consume the other. So. And now I'm going to breathe. Any questions so far? I know I've babbled, you know, probably faster than I normally babble.
Thank you so much, Dave. This is incredible.
Did it within the half an hour. How's that?
Perfect. Thank you. You know, I'm amazed at how the technology has evolved in just a few years to, you know, to optimize connectivity and optimize the end user experience. We have just a couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind spending just a few more minutes with us.
Not at all. I'm trying to see if I can get that, my, what do you call, back up on the screen. Some reason, in the chat window?
I have a couple of...
Read them out to me, and I'll go for it.
All right. So the first question is security related. How do you define trusted and untrusted?
All right. For me, trusted means, and it just goes back more of a security mindset, and I've worn that hat in my past, is either I own the network or I have trust in the partner, and to me, I'm kind of like Reagan-era trust. If part of my link or part of my transit or an area, I at least want to see and review the architecture and the plan and try and punch holes in it. I'm not just going to take, if one piece is I'm just assuming, an authentication piece is I'm punching out. Maybe I want to see that person, if it's over the internet, I want to make sure that maybe that connection is a separate IPsec tunnel that I'm going from my network to his network, and I know only that authentication traffic's going there. I want to go through each piece and analyze it and make sure that, I trust it. But once I'm trusted, because all trust begins with I want to say human trust, but an agreement trust, I mean, I'm at work. I've signed contracts saying I won't push intellectual property out to you, Doug, right? But, I still could, but, there's certain trust that have to be established, and part of that trust for me is understanding that the people who build the piece I don't own are clueful, and I've at least seen enough of the plans for the house to go like, yeah, that house is solid and will stand, an attack. One of the things I did in doing this IPsec, secure voice over Wi-Fi for Apple, is we had to prove that the system, we took large testing devices from places like Ixia and pummeled the device with huge denial of service attacks, and ping of deaths and oversized packets to make sure that system did not only die or possibly pop a kernel and allow people in, that still maintain its bastion, its security, and still took services. So to me, it's untrusted means there's any piece that I don't have faith in, but, and trusted means I've either own it and understand mine and have, understand I have no holes, and any partners, I've at least sat down with and done the due diligence to understand their network and that they've done the due diligence. So, yeah, Doug, what else you got?
Next question. Your managed service provider Wi-Fi model that you talked about, you mentioned Airtime Fairness. Can the sharing algorithm be adapted dynamically?
Yeah, so the sharing, well, I mean, so the way that it kind of works is the Airtime Fairness, let's just say, and I'll give another example. You created 4 SSIDs that are going to be used in this area, and I decided, I'm going to pick a percentage that goes with each one. I can update that one. So I can come in and through the system say, no, it's not going to be 25, 25, 25, 25, it's going to be 25, 25, 35, 15, and push that. But if it's out there, and let's just go with the 4 or 5, 25 times 4, if one of them is not being used, it will adjust dynamically and offer, if one of the 25 tries to breathe beyond 25, and there's room to breathe because the other 25ers aren't using it, it can breathe in there. But if one of the 25ers who is rightfully allowed 25 goes from 15 to 20 to 25, from a time division algorithm, it will stop offering as much to that guy who went 25, 35. It'll start bringing them in back to 25. So it is dynamic in its adjustment in real time, and then if you decided for an event or you wanted to push out new metrics, again, 15, 30, 35, 25, 25, you can do that as well. That to me was one of the big things that made this S-piece, called city Wi-Fi, and again, it doesn't have to be a city. It could be anything from, a university to a hospital to a shopping center or to, downtown Manhattan. You want to be able to ensure that, I represent the service provider to the city. I want to make sure that my service provider customer says, I get 50%. I don't want to ever see him not get, I want to see him get 50 or better, and then breathe back to 50 and then breathe out to 7, So that's when we actually went into the Wi-Fi business unit at Cisco, and who are very, I'm not saying enterprise focused, but Wi-Fi is an enterprise, whatever, from its origin, and said, no, need you to look at it from a service provider view, and this is what we consider fairness to be. So they redesigned the whole fairness for us, and that was the one ingredient for that recipe that made it work. So.
Thank you, Dave. And then we just have one last question. And I can understand this one. We all know that you know, when we go into our local Starbucks or we log on to our local hotspot, you know, we know that it's insecure, right? And we know that we live in an age of many security threats to sensitive data and personal information. How can we improve security?
So for me, that's untrusted. So when I look at it that way, what I like to do, and I do this on, you know, I carry 2 laptops. I have a personal one and a business one. On my personal one, because obviously, oddly enough, I'm more secure on my personal than probably my business, though my business is well honed. I run, you know, I run VPN services constantly, so that I am constantly tunneled through that. So what you want to do from a phone standpoint, that policy I showed you before that had that that wireless offload, that can be adjusted so that, you know, again, working with the service provider, whether or not that IPsec tunnel is purely for, you know, in this case, the voice over Wi-Fi app, or you want to run more over that. You know, so to, you know, that's how I make myself secure, because I have no idea, even though it's Google-based, and I'm not downing that, you know, I'm not trusting the people around me. So even on my laptop, if I'm, even arguably today, I was at Starbucks, I bring up there are VPN services out there for your phone and for your laptop that are not going to connect to your, obviously your work VPN. It's just it's a paid for public service where I build a tunnel, and whether my tunnel terminates in, I'm in Virginia right now, whether it terminates in Washington or New York or Dallas, I come out of there, you know, there's no one in that path that can hack into it. One of the things I did not mention that I should have mentioned also is if you are then the service provider of this one for City X, I'm picking on the city at random, Baltimore. The city of Baltimore is the Starbucks to your Google, so that if law enforcement comes along and says to you, hey, service provider in Baltimore, I've got some ne'er-do-well here. Here's the MAC address, I think. That's his phone, that's his Wi-Fi address. I need you to you know, do lawful intercept. We design these systems to allow lawful intercept. They do not come with that. So that's another service provider Wi-Fi, you know, must-have. So, and for us, when we go to a city, you know, we do an RF analysis. We also look where fiber is. We look where hanging is. We look what fiber type it is. We even had one city which was unique. You know, I grew up with fiber. Fiber has 2 glass strands. One of them is a receive, one of them is a transmit, a talk and a listen. And they said, no, we pulled fiber, but we only pulled 1 strand. So you have to figure out how to talk and listen on the same piece of glass, which is doable. But you need to do all that. If you do a city, there's a lot of goodness you can get here, but you know, it's not a perfect world. It's not. Some cities, you know, streets are nice square grids, and a lot of cities they're not. You're going to get into cities and you're going to find where you can hang, where you can't hang, where's fiber, you know. So make no assumptions, do all your, you know, make sure you do good analysis and site surveys. But at the end of the day, everyone and their mom at all these cities that I've been dealing with since last we met are giddy up on the idea. They're like, what, you know, because they want to be a future city. They want to be, you know, they want to be a smart city. And again, budgets being what they are, they're offering, you know, to give you full reign of the house. You get to paint it. You get to bring the furniture in. So, and you get to use half the house and half the furniture, roughly. So, it's a good deal. That's all I'm saying. And you know, and not that you can't go in there with a big, you know, macros and EOBs, and you can go in there with Picos and stuff. You know, I'm actually designing some of these networks so that not only do you get access Wi-Fi in a city for these major areas, I'm doing it also so that I'm leaving open power and ports, so later on that the service provider can come through and hang, you know, small cell radios there as well, so I can give both licensed and unlicensed, because I know, you know, down the road that's going to be a request. So I make sure that it's built for today and built for tomorrow.
Thanks, Dave. That's all the questions we have. Thanks, Dave, for leading our webinar today, and thanks again to Cisco. And I want to thank all of our attendees. Dave, do you have any parting comments?
No, just, you know, missing Dave Bowie. That's about it.
So I hope that everybody will stay tuned for our next topical webinar that's coming soon. And just a reminder, All Mobility Development Group members are invited to keynote webinars and contribute topical articles and advertisements to our newsletters free of charge, of course. If you're interested in becoming a member, please visit our website. And if you are interested in being a sponsor or a speaker or moderating a panel session at an upcoming event, or if you just have questions or comments on our webinar today, you'll find a link to contact us on our website. That's www.mobilitydg.org. And you'll also be able to review today's presentation on our website. And if you're interested in contacting Dave and Cisco regarding their SA Mobility Gateway, please, you'll find that information there as well. And then finally, just to conclude, I want to thank Dave Dukenfield and Cisco again for hosting our webinar today and for their continued support of the MDG. We are all very fortunate to be a part of a rapidly growing, but as everyone knows, a very turbulent wireless industry. The world will be very different, as Dave pointed out, in 5 years with connected autos and smart cities and smart homes. Wireless health, and much, much more. But it remains to be seen who the winners and the losers will be 5–10 years from now. The MDG is your forum to interact with other industry leaders to gain clarity on all the new business models, the network platforms, leveraging unlicensed spectrum, best practices for Internet of Things management, security, as Dave mentioned, and in general, the evolution to the next generation of hyper-connected networks, and ensure your companies and your continued success. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Dave, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you, Doug.